Hello Orchid friends, welcome back to my channel. Wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day, staying healthy and staying safe. This orchid is a mini Phalaenopsis orchid in my collection. This one is a grocery store Phalaenopsis, so just like many of the grocery store phals, this one does not have a name tag, so I actually don't know its name nor its parentage. This one is very unique in its color. It's kind of burgundy-ish red color. It's pretty dark. Sometimes unless I put it directly under a light source or sunlight, otherwise the red is pretty dark, and I love that. It looks almost like it's a red velvet. It's like velvety kind of color. Now, this video is really more of a report card video. Last year, this orchid bloomed also, and there are two major differences between last year's blooming and this year's. First of all, timing. This orchid bloomed in February 2019, I think. And then this time around, it's a lot later. It's almost 3 months later. It's May 2020 that this orchid bloomed. But this year, this orchid gave me many more flowers than last year. Even though later you'll see in this video that it still managed to have 2 bud blasts. But last year, I was on a business trip, and the story was that there was one day that was really hot in the upper 80s or even low 90s, and then the day before and the day after was much cooler. I think it was like in the 70s or something. So that big drastic temperature change caused many of its buds to blast. So I ended up only had 2 flowers, and then the rest of the buds just got destroyed. So this year, I made a point not to disturb this orchid during the bud maturing phase. I didn't move it at all. Nonetheless, it still managed to have 2 bud blasts. So I think this orchid is just rather sensitive by nature. So if we go back in time, this is what it looked like in 2019. After all the blooms was done, it was growing roots, and then it was toward end of November 2019, I started to see a little bit of the spike emerging, and then it kept growing and growing. So until about February that I realized, okay, it's probably done growing the spike and is about to start putting out buds. So I was happy, but I knew this orchid will take a while. And just looking at my calendar then, I was wondering, I was like, this orchid was growing really slow, because this time last year, it was already in buds and was about to bloom. Anyway, so here you see that I use a bamboo skewer to prop up the flower spike, because I wanted to save horizontal space. I really enjoy watching orchids grow their flower spike in a pendant way. But because I now have a few more orchids on the shelf, on the rack, and I just did not want to bump them over, so I decided to stake many of my orchids in 2020. So of course I ran out of all those stakes that I could reuse, so I decided that I'm just gonna go to a grocery store and pick up a packet of bamboo skewer, like barbecue skewer sticks. It was like less than $1, maybe 99 cents, and that would give me 100 sticks. It worked really well, and obviously it's thin enough that you can just cut to any size that's necessary. I didn't, because I have enough space between shelves that I didn't have to cut them, just so that they won't bump the bottom of the upper rack. Okay, so this orchid didn't really receive any special care. It's quarter strength fertilizer, and each time, especially when it was in bud, I did not move this orchid at all. So I knew this orchid needed quarter cup of water each time, and it would, have a wet dry cycle of 1 week. quarter cup. So that's all I did. I did not give this orchid anything else, just water during the buds phase. But leading up to when it was in buds, I did give it quarter strength fertilizer, but that was it. So this orchid started to open early April, and that was really nice. I was really happy about it. The fact that, you know, I may have a chance to help this orchid redeem itself. Because last year, I was kind of disappointed after so long that I didn't see this orchid rebloom, that it was a letdown, that it only finished with 2 flowers. But this time around, finally, it's performing like expected. Now, the 2 buds that blasted, I had no idea what happened because I did not have many bud blasts for many of my orchids. Actually, almost all of them came to full bloom, except Tetraspis. Tetraspis, you know how sometimes they're sequentially blooming and then sometimes they put out a couple buds but then only want to open one. You know, that's common for Tetraspis to certain extent. But for most of my orchids, they finished all their buds, they bloomed out. I just don't know what happened to the 2 buds. Sometimes I think it's just a natural selection. The orchid knew that, 2 buds were just somehow defected or something, because for many of my orchids, they didn't go through that. Because if there is any drastic temperature change or any kind of problem, I think orchids around this orchid would also experience or show the same signs of bud blast, but most of them didn't. In fact, none of them did. So I don't know what happened. You can see now the 2 behind in the kind of background there, the 2 on the left hand side, they were about to start to shrink and shrivel for some reason. Overall though, I think this orchid is still interesting to look at. It's just that the color isn't too welcoming. It's a little dark, but I think it's interesting that, the outer edge of the petals has this white trim around it, white edge around it. So that's another interesting thing about this orchid. And then the lip has a little bit of orange, or I would say that's an orange. Overall, it's interesting, but I hope next year it would do better. This is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to get more orchid related videos from my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification. I want to wish you happy growing, and I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!